Hello and welcome to Raider HQ After Dark. I'm your host Raider, and in this video I wanted to do a deeper dive on one of the theories for service connection and what I consider to be one of the most important theories for service connection that is underutilized and misunderstood, and that is 38 CFR 3.309A, which is diseases. It's a chronic diseases subject to presumption. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So this theory of service connection, as I alluded to in the theories overview video, it behaves drastically different than the other theories of service connection. And the reason for that is that this theory, in order to be granted, you have to be diagnosed within a certain period of time, either in service or out of service. So, for all of you that have been writing in about the personal statements for missing element 2, this might be the theory that can help you to get service connected for conditions to which you never had any treatment in service. Okay, and I will kind of allude to that later on in the video, but it would behoove you to listen and watch. Hopefully, you're watching, I guess. To the whole video, because I do go over a lot of information. It's not a very complex theory, but this theory matters. So these are all the conditions that are qualified to be a chronic disability or disease, chronic disease. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, hey, look, there's a little bit of naming issue here because I thought every single condition had to be chronic. And you know what? You're right. So for a disability to be granted, it has to be deemed chronic. So it cannot be acute or transitory. But what a actual chronic disease is it's a disease that for VA purposes has been determined to be permanent, right? Like until the day you die, you will have that thing. Now, some of these are a little bit more subjective than others, but that's the stance that like medically it's a little bit more subjective, but the VA has taken the stance that all of the conditions listed in this section right here are permanent. They will never go away. So once diagnosed accurately, you have them forever. Element 1 will always be satisfied after you have it diagnosed officially. Now, why this matters is because like this is kidney stones and whatnot. So a lot of these seem like they're very complex diseases that not very many people would have. You might be saying, "Hey, look, this video doesn't really apply to me." Well, hold on just a second. Let me just get the timeline first, and then we'll move on to that. So the date range for or the requirement in order to satisfy the chronic disease to be able to grant it is that the disease must have manifested to a 10% degree of severity within 1 year of being discharged from service. Now, for the most part, all conditions will, once diagnosed, can pretty much get to that 10%. But this is the requirement, okay? Now, why it matters is diabetes, right? Like the one that's going to just reach out to you guys probably is diabetes. So if you were diagnosed with diabetes within a year, and let's say, you had to control your diet, that would be 10%, right? So the reason why this is important is because a lot of veterans have been denied for conditions within a year of RAD. Like they'll get out, they'll file a claim, and they'll request certain things, and they get denied. Having a diagnosis and having a symptom with at least 10% severity. Now, once again, you might be going, hey, Raider, I don't have a brain tumor, so this doesn't apply to me. So let me go here. Actually, let me go back here. So this right here, other organic diseases of the nervous system. This is the most important thing that you care about, unless you care about arthritis. Arthritis is another one that you should care about. So if for organic diseases of the nervous system, if you were a veteran, you got out in, let's say, 2020, and you filed a claim, and you claimed migraines, and they said, you know what? Yeah, you get your exam, 6 months after your discharge, you've got migraines, but we don't think that they're, related to service. But your DBQ shows that you should be 30% if they had have granted you. Okay? Why is that important? Well, because effectively the rater should have pivoted from the direct theory of service connection to 38 CFR 3.309A because we are supposed this is a presumptive condition. You were diagnosed within a year, so you met the date range requirements, and you were diagnosed to a 30% degree. So that also meets the requirements, which means that they should have granted you instantly, and you should have gotten back pay to your release from active duty plus 1 day. Look at these conditions, guys. Like, look at these. I know a lot of you have claimed these and been denied within the first year. Now, you National Guard and reservists, you might be saying, well, hey, does this count for my first active duty, my second active duty stint, my Title 10 orders? It counts every time for your Title 10 orders. Anything that qualifies for active duty for VA purposes, this assessment gets to be done at every single turn and should be. But the majority of raters do not understand this theory, and they don't even know it exists, and they don't even know to apply it. Now, not clickbaity, on the thumbnail I told you guys that I have personally won a claim for this. Now, in the early 2000s, I filed a claim having gotten out of the military for my knee arthritis, right? Osteoarthritis, but still arthritis. I had pain in my knee. I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis within 8 months. I had my exam within 8 months of my release from active duty. I was diagnosed via x ray with arthritis. Well, kick out 15 years or so. And, I'd been in the VA for quite some time. And I thought, you know what? Let's do a supplemental on this. Let's try a different theory. Let's try secondary to the other knee that got service connected. So I do that, and they deny me again, right? I got denied because something stupid. They said it was due, it preceded the other knee, and I'm like, okay, well that's kind of dumb, because I didn't think it did, but you know how sometimes your medical records lie to you. But what happened was I said, you know what? Hold on a second. I went diving and I go, how could I service connect this? So I went through all the theories of service connection. And I started to equate myself with this 3.309A, chronic diseases. And I started like trying to understand a little bit better. And then once I got it and I was like, holy crap, I should have been granted for this. I went back and within a year of that supplemental claim, I did a higher level review. And I said, hey, look, and during my informal conference, I said, look, I got two, I don't want to call them clear and unmistakable errors, but I want to say that the rater should have applied 38 CFR 3.309A for my arthritis. It was clearly diagnosed within, I'm going to take issue with the rating decision that happened a year ago, but I'm also going to take issue with the rating decision that happened originally for it because it should have been applied. And I was just, talking with the DRO, and the DRO's like, you know what? Actually, you're right. So I'm just going to grant you on this. Yeah, I can clearly see that you were diagnosed with arthritis, and they, the first one should have caught it, the second one should have caught it. I'm really sorry. I'm like, hey, look, no worries, man. Same team, same fight, like type thing, like whatever. I'm glad you saw it, And so I got over 21,000 in back pay. It's just 10%, for painful motion of the knee, but it was a big deal for me and my family, right? Like, and it was validating. So I think that there are a lot of you out there that can actually benefit from this theory, not just in the present day, like not the guys getting out, but I think it would behoove all veterans to review your prior denials that happened with, like if you filed a claim within a year of your RAD and you had an examination within that year, and you can find anything on this list that applies to you, right? To include these things right here. Tinnitus. How many of you were denied for tinnitus? You have a diagnosis of tinnitus. You were denied within a year of your RAD. Think about this. Take a moment and think about this. How many of you does this apply to? Because, I mean, I hate to be the one to make the VA get a flood of supplemental claims, but this matters, right? This is why I do the channel. This right here is to provide help to each and every one of you without solicitation, without bias, without any kind of, like, hey, buy my vitamins, type stuff. I just want to get the word out. If you are not, because I'm going to be honest with you, the majority of attorneys, like accredited attorneys, accredited claims agents, they do not understand this. They are not using this. They are not fighting. They're not using all the tools in the toolbox to fight your claim, right? Because hearing loss, now if you got 0% hearing loss, that wouldn't count, right? Because you got to make the 10%. But, and I'm rambling again, and I'm sorry for that. But headaches is a big one. Carpal tunnel is a big one. Uh, you know, Peripheral nerves. Like, how many times have you been granted or denied? I should say denied for like cervical spine, but you have radiculopathy. Okay, well, if I have a peripheral nerve condition, yeah, you should grant me. Like you should grant me for a peripheral nerve condition. Um, yeah, I think that this is, I don't know. I don't want to like just hammer the point to death, but I think that there's real meat on this bone for you guys. I think that you should go back, you should look at your old ratings, you should take a look, you should kind of determine whether or not you could fall under this category of anything. Write me in the comments. Ask me. Just say, hey, look, I got migraines 30%, like whatever it is. Just ask me. I'll try to get to it. I'm a human being, so. But this is a big deal. Oh, yeah, that's right. I almost forgot. I also want to talk about psychosis. Okay, so we're gonna spend a few seconds here with psychosis. It doesn't apply to a lot of people, but it's a confusing topic. So in my mental health video, what I had said was for a personality disorder, right, to include conditions like schizophrenia. Now, this doesn't apply to all personality disorders, just the ones that cause hallucinations and delusions and things like that. Now, typically, those cannot be service connected unless they manifested initially in service or were, manifested before service. But if they manifested before service, you wouldn't be let into service. So typically, you're pigeonholed to in service. However, there is this situation where a lot of you have been denied for developing psychosis after service, right? You can get, for treatment purposes, if you're diagnosed within a period of time after service, you can get your psychosis covered for treatment purposes. You won't get any money, but you will get the ability to go seek mental health treatment. Now, the only thing that I would say is if you develop that psychosis condition within 1 year of your release from active duty, then you should have been granted, under the 38 CFR 3.309A because psychosis is in there. So this is just another one of those things where I want, this is on you guys, right? Like you guys have to go and double check your rating decisions. You've got to be your own advocate on this because your VSO doesn't know this. They file claims. Some of them do them really well, some of them don't do them really well. But they have no functional understanding, even though they're supposed to get training once a month from the RO, some of them are. But they don't have a full working understanding of how to rate a claim, like how a claim gets rated. What could I pivot from direct to 3.309A? Can I raise a theory to issue? And the answer is yes, you can if it applies. Like if the veteran meets the criteria, yes, you can, So anyway, I'm going to keep this one to 15 minutes, but hey guys, I once again just here to try to help. If you guys want to watch the videos, you can. If you want to subscribe, I'd appreciate it. We just hit 3,000 subscribers. It's awesome. I'd also like to thank all the VSRs and raiders that are members here. You guys are awesome. I'm going to get my streaming stuff going here in before Saturday. And I think I'm going to talk about private DBQs and just kind of You guys have a lot of questions about that. So I think I'm just going to start my first one with just responding to questions primarily about that and just anything else. But anyway, once again, thank you all for the support. I really do appreciate it. It's always appreciated, but never required. Anyway, thank you, and Raider out.